You know, I can sound like Shakespeare and say to stretch or not to stretch, that's the question. That is a question that we're commonly asked. And it seems like since grade school, we've all been told to stretch. You know, do the static stretching where you lean up against a wall or bend over and touch your toes and hold that position. Well, there's a lot of controversy whether that's any good for you. In fact, a lot of data has suggested that static stretching can actually decrease your performance in all sports, not just running, while other data suggests that if you don't hold that stretch for a long period of time, if you only stretch for, say, 30 seconds, it will increase your flexibility and won't decrease your performance. I think there's a lot of confusion about that, but I do want to tell you about a very interesting study that was presented at the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons at their annual meeting in February of 2011, a great study. They took 3,000 runners, about 3,000, who were already running 10 miles and randomized them into two groups. One group who were told to stretch for 3 to 5 minutes before they ran. The other group were told not to stretch before they ran and just to continue their running. And then they followed them for a while and looked at the injury rate. And what did they find? It really made no difference whether you stretched or didn't stretch. The injury rate was about the same. Very interesting for the people who were running already and were not stretching, and then they told them to stretch, they had an injury rate of about 16%. For the runners who were stretching, and then they told them not to stretch and then to continue doing their running routine, they actually had a little higher injury rate. So the take-home message is, whatever you're doing, don't change your routine. If you are stretching before you run, go ahead and continue it. If you're not stretching before you run, you may not need to do it. This is really the most important thing. Maintain that same routine you're doing, because that's really the proof that it's probably going to minimize your risk for injury. One other thing that came out of this study, which I think is really interesting, is that when they looked at injuries in those runners in general, they found that increasing age, increasing your mileage, so you go from 5 to 10 miles, or if you were overweight and increase your mileage, that does denote a population who's more likely to be injured. So to stretch or not to stretch, it really depends what you're doing right now. Just continue to do it. For RunningTrax, I'm Dr. Randy Martin.